This is going to be episode 225 of the Waiting Since Last Saturday podcast. I'm probably going to do a different intro because this is kind of weird, but just in case. And I've really got to prepare or practice looking at this camera instead of right here. Waiting on Will. What's up, Georgia Bulldogs fans? My name is Scott Duvall, and you are listening to episode 225 of the Waiting Since Last Saturday podcast. I should say you're listening and watching because, yes, once again, we're on YouTube. And so while I have you here, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel? It's WSLS Podcast on YouTube. Yeah, so try that. But if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from, welcome as well. Today, I speak with my other co-host, Will Leach. A couple days ago, Tony Waller and I spoke about kind of everything that's going on, and that's kind of the same idea that we're having today. We don't talk that much about Georgia football or Georgia sports because really, there's not a lot of stuff happening, and there's a lot more important things to talk about. The one reason I really wanted to speak to Will was because I hadn't seen him in a while, and two, he's been really prolifically writing this week. Obviously, he's a writer. He works for MLB.com, but he had an opinion piece, a fantastic opinion piece that I'm going to put in the show notes of this episode in the New York Times yesterday, talking about what are sports going to look like whenever they come back. And so he had another piece today in his newsletter, and he's got a couple more coming up for NBC Sports. So he is someone whose opinion I value on this, and I think you'll enjoy it as well. We sat down and spoke for about 45 minutes, and just one little word of caution. This is from the production side of it. I'm using a new system. I'm recording with a DSLR camera, and I'm recording over the internet, so there might be some buffering at times, so just bear with me. There might not be anything I can do about it because of internet connections or whatever, but just wanted to give you a heads up because that's always a better way of approaching that when you have kind of a buffering issue. But please, feel free to share this with any Georgia fans. We plan on doing a lot of this content coming up since everybody's kind of quarantined or isolated or whatever you want to call it. So anyway, I hope you enjoy our conversation. Here's Will Leach and me talking about everything that's going on right now. Oh my gosh, I'm at a beach and you have aged or something.
I can't hear you.
Can you see me?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me.
I can't hear you.
How's that?
Wait. How about now?
I can hear you.
There you go. Now I can hear you.
Wow. I chose a beach background and you chose the scariest mask I think I've ever seen.
You know, it's been a long week. You know. It's just I've been inside a lot. We've all aged a lot in the last 7 days. So
it's like it's
I swear I'll look better once this is over. Okay, hang on. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
I'm trying my I'm trying my hang on, let me move this over here. I'm sure you can tell from this. This is as close as I get to a beard. I'm trying to.
Yeah, you've often said that you kind of are more like a porpoise than a human.
Yeah, I'm barely a mammal. So I'm trying my COVID-19 beard. So I think that it's not popular, to say the least. But the good news is no one can really notice. So
that's right. And I did read your newsletter that came across about an hour ago, and you were talking about how much jogging or running you're doing these days. And I figured that's a good way to start off this podcast. And by the way, welcome. This is episode 225 of the Waiting Since Last Saturday.
Are we counting these as episodes?
Yeah, I'm counting anything with you or me or Tony, or if we do like a spotlight series. But I think the ones that I plan on doing just for YouTube only, those are just going to be
fair enough.
Random. Does it really matter anymore?
I don't. Yeah, honestly, no. I'm sorry. I'm not going to lose canon. I'm not gonna let the COVID-19 ruin my.
It's saying that my internet is a little bit.
You look clearer. You look clearer than
I'm using. I'm using a DSLR camera. I'm not using a webcam.
I'm just using. I'm impressed. You look clear.
Well, that's one of those things that since Saturday happened or Sunday happened, really every day seems to get worse and worse.
I feel like Wednesday is the day.
And we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. Okay.
But since all this started going down, I was like, you know what? Will, Tony, and I aren't going to be able to get together podcasting. I hate Skype. I've always hated Skype. And so I was like, I need to come up with a new way of recording this. In fact, I want to come up with something better with video content and, starting a YouTube channel. And so I've basically, over the past 48 hours, figured out how to live stream, which is something that I would not have figured out had all of this junk not happened.
All right. Well, thanks. A national global pandemic. We got Scott Morgan. Yeah. I'm game, man. As I said, I'm sorry. It makes me feel bad we didn't get fit in one more before all this went down, because I think we're all going to be in here for a while.
We didn't even mention it on our last podcast. I remember after I hit stop on the last one, it was just kind of breaking news.
It was mentioned. It was mentioned. Yeah, it was mentioned. But now to be fair, I don't even think, that was really even before it hit Italy that hard.
Oh,
so,
sure.
Sure. I think that, I think that's when everyone, it's surprising we don't have to get into the details of it, but it's certainly the idea of everybody sort of waking up being like, what, there's a curfew? Like, it feels like this is I think if you're just waking up to this, you have some catching up to do.
You've been writing a lot lately. I saw an opinion piece from New York Times, which I thought was fascinating. I really liked what you wrote today about, what you're thinking about interacting with people when you jog. And you've also had a couple others. I'm sure that your business is booming because we're all sitting here thumbing through trying to read any kind of pieces of information that are either going to inform us, entertain us, or maybe make us think a little bit differently. So maybe fill us in on what is going on with you right now amid this coronavirus outbreak.
Yeah, well, it's booming now. Check with me in 2 months when there's no sports.
Right.
But it's booming now. Just to be honest, this is rather instantly has become probably the biggest thing any of us are going to live through. So it definitely feels. I was very honored. Because I was in Florida. I went to my wife's father has a place that we go to every spring break. So we were there, very excited. I actually printed out all the conference tournament brackets for me and my son. We were very excited to really nerd about. We got a few through. Congratulations for the Missouri Valley Conference for finishing your tournament. I kind of every day it became more and more clear it was getting a little bit more serious. And then I think that 15-minute stretch Wednesday night from the president's underwhelming address to on the heels of that, the Tom Hanks news, and then of course Rudy Gobert. Jim Newell, a very good writer for Slate, said that someday we may all look at Rudy Gobert, that dipshit, as some sort of like a global hero, because it does feel like that. Tom Hanks, and again, the president's address really clicked it into a lot of people that this was no joke. And certainly that, everybody has that moment where it feels like everything changes. I was a little worried. I was very worried about the coronavirus, but it didn't really hit home just how serious it was really until that stretch. And now it's gotten a little bit more serious each time. So I'm keeping busy. The kids are here. The New York Times was very honored. The New York Times came to me and asked me if I wanted to write. They said, you want to write about how this is affecting sports? And I was like, wow, you have like a whole section of people that does that. Like, I was very honored that I was the person that they came to with that. But I was like, well, do you have anything specific? And they're like, no, just take like 2,000 words, do whatever you got to do. And I was like, okay. So I was very happy with that, how that piece turned out. We can talk the details of it, but I have a piece in NBC News. I've got a piece in the Washington Post coming up, I believe, on Wednesday. I have a New York Magazine piece that may not go up now that Dana White has finally canceled.
Oh, did they close it?
They finally did close it. So I wrote it. We'll see if they still run with it. But certainly it is. It's a hairy time. And listen, I got to say yes to write everything now because there might not be anybody asking me to write anything in a couple of months. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I am. This is I've with my newsletter. I've started doing a daily. It's usually a weekly newsletter. Now it's a daily thing. Having people tell me their stories, because I feel like a lot of times when this stuff is covered, people talk about, the politics of it, or they talk about the mathematics of it, or they talk about how it's affecting the sports world. And the fact is, one of the things that has been a major news story over the last kind of last 10 years of American life is there are no collective experiences anymore. I think one of the reasons that we still talk about where we were when like Michael Jackson died, because it really feels like there's or Prince, is because there aren't many things that we all kind of collectively have anymore. Everyone kind of goes into their little corners and has their little niches. This is something that everyone is going through, and so everybody has the story. And for my newsletter, I'm doing. People are sending their stories, and we're running them. But yeah, it's. I mean, this is no joke, man. I'll confess, I've had some frustrations personally with the way some people have handled this situation. I think it is one thing to not maybe get the ramifications of what's happening. It's another thing to actively flout that and to actively fly in the face at it as some sort of way to make some stupid point. I think there's been a lot of good arguments. I'm writing a piece for Medium tomorrow about how our Generation X are the ones that are really kind of the people that took this seriously first, because honestly, we have young kids and old parents. And so, A, we're used to being home anyway because we're latchkey kids. But B, there's really not a generation of people that feels that I think this feels more urgent too, because we're worried about our parents, not worried about our kids, and our parents are so old and, so convinced they're going to be fine that they're farting through this stuff, and kids think they're immortal. And we're, as usual, Gen X is stuck in the middle between the millennials and the boomers. So it's a scary time, and we're going to be in here for a long time. So I'm going to get used to this technology, and I promise not to wear the mask.
Yeah, and it's amazing how for 2 or 3 weeks ago, all we heard about when it came to sports was the Astros and how many Astros players were going to get plunked. And we were excited about Major League Baseball spring training and then the upcoming tournaments for basketball. And even with the NBA, I mean, this is the best part of the NBA, really. It's starting to cook up, and then everything just comes to a screeching halt. I wonder, you brought up Rudy Gobert a minute ago, and of course, Wednesday, March 11th, was the turning point. What do you think would have happened had that trainer not run onto the court at Oklahoma City? What if there had been a delay until maybe 2 days later? I mean, of course, we haven't seen the ramifications yet from the complete spiking because everything is going up and up. But what do you think? I mean, I kind of feel like people wouldn't have been jerked to attention as quickly.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's possible it was already too late at that point, to be honest. I think that we'll find out. Hopefully not. Nate Silver's had some really interesting stuff on his Twitter feed about this, about how much, on one hand, I've been writing a lot about this, about how late our response was, even as it was, how late sports response was. I mean, remember on Tuesday morning when the Ivy League canceled their tournament. Yeah. People were pissed. People were like, how could they do this? How could they deprive these collegiate athletes from this great opportunity? And now we're like, the Ivy League, those guys are smart apparently. And so, I think that, but even then, I think you can make an argument. A lot of stuff was too late. On Thursday, I was down in Jupiter. My parents went to the last spring training game. And after all this stuff had all kind of gone down in a way that, I don't know, I hope they're all right. I mean, there were 2,000 people in that stadium all crammed together, most of them old white people. So I think that it makes you nervous. But also, on the other hand, basically the United States shutting down for weeks at a time or potentially months at a time, I think that will make a difference. Whether it's too late or not, we'll see. But that's no joke. And it may have taken a while. I think it took, clearly it took the president a while to get there, though. I thought, I don't know what happened. People saw the Monday afternoon press conference. Something scared him straight. It took long enough, but there was a clear, long overdue, but certainly still appreciated understanding of the ramifications of this. I think that was a big part of this, to be honest, is the idea of spitting on the floor and hugging your pals to own the libs struck me as a particularly weird way to handle this situation. But, either way, we're shut down now. Yeah. And I think it's good, and I'm grateful, but I don't know how long this is going to go. And I think Rudy Gobert did snap us into attention a little bit. I think Tom Hanks snapped us into attention a little bit. I think for a certain number of people, Idris Elba will snap people into attention a little bit. But we're going to have to get used to that. I think we're early enough in the process still that when you hear someone has it, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
like they've gotten cancer or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't. They
Right.
don't. And it doesn't mean that that's not serious, but we're so early in the process. Like, we're all going to know someone who has it. Like, some of us may have it and never show symptoms. While the Gobert thing pushed us up a little bit, and I think did make a difference. It's the reason there was no NCAA tournament. It's the reason I think everything kind of shut down. But I also think that there will be a time, probably not too long from now, where we look back at that Gobert thing and think how dumbly naive we were at that particular point. Because this is, I mean, literally, my kids were supposed to go back to school Tuesday. Like, they're not even, they haven't even gotten disrupted yet. Like, they're still, this is just starting. So there's no question that, you know, when you think about how much this changed in 1 day and 2 days and a week, any predictions of what's happened in the past and how it's going to affect what happen in the future is pretty much just guesswork.
Yeah, and on the last episode that I'd done with Tony, I talked about how I had a meeting and I was a little hesitant to shake hands, but then that voice inside my head, I was like, don't be, I mean, this is foolish. Just immediately wash your hands after. But I had like a 45-minute meeting and my face itched and I started thinking about that. And, you know, you start making yourself paranoid over it. And now, you know, fast forward to Monday, I agree. I did watch a little bit of that press conference with Trump, and I don't watch much news anyway. Of course, you get it all online, but I've been very interested to see how combative he has been in the past. Not to turn this completely political, but hey, everything's political now, right?
This is what politics are for. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, honestly, like I don't want to. I'll be real brief, but like, I don't want to turn this into a Trump thing, Trump bad, Trump good, whatever. But like, literally, like, this is what politics are. Like, this is the job. Is this and so for me, we can all make our judgments of how well. We'll see how this all turns out. Literally, this is what the government does. So I guess we'll find out how they did. So please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed to me that he was a lot more measured. It was almost like I had been. It was in the past few days. I've been telling my wife, the only person I want to see on TV is Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, he's been great.
He seems like he's the only guy that really speaks to the American people right now, currently, and is someone that really you kind of bend your ear towards. So, but I did appreciate, because you know, paying close attention to this, I did appreciate the seriousness that today's press conference, because we can sit here and reevaluate what happened a week ago or 2 weeks ago, but it does us no good. So the quicker that all of us can kind of take this thing a lot more serious as it is, the better. And it starts at the top. But what I'd also like to do today is kind of ask you about some of these leagues. We've gotten a lot of news from the NFL today, and I saw a headline that kind of jarred me, because I had been flipping through like MSNBC or CNBC or something like that, and saw that the Dow was down 3,000 points, you know, almost like the worst since Black Monday in 1987. And then
the second time it's been the worst since Black Monday this week.
Yeah, exactly. And then I click on ESPN and it says Austin Hooper set to be the highest paid tight end in the NFL for the Cleveland Browns. And I'm like, all this news of free agency just seems ill-timed, because people are losing their shirts. And then the NFL's just going around just spending money. Am I overreacting to that? Or is it just kind of like, hey, at least some business is happening? I'm not sure how I should feel about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm kind of torn on that too. First off, don't blame the tight end about that.
No.
Yeah,
congrats to him.
I've seen a couple people being like, well, why aren't teachers getting this money? You know, I agree. We're all going to find out as we try to teach our kids over the next couple of months how teachers should be paid $40 million a day, because we're going to realize how hard it is. I'm of two minds on this myself. One is the idea that, yeah, it definitely looks weird. And I think the NFL in particular, because their season is so far off, and because they're the NFL and they generally think that, you know, everything, that their shit doesn't stink. Sorry, I keep cursing, but
I'll let it slide.
It's a trying time. I'm also I'm drinking buys, by the way. I'm not even drinking bourbon. What's wrong with me? I feel this is such a weird podcast. I'm trying to stay healthy during this tumultuous time. But on one hand, yeah, it's very weird to see, and it's very strange to see not just the money aspect of it, but like as every other sport has stopped, football is acting like everything's fine, everything is totally normal, and that is weird. And I think it's a little tone deaf. On the other hand, I don't mind having one little semblance of everyone pretending everything is normal for.
Oh, sure.
I don't mind it. There's an optimism to it. Listen, there are experts out there that are not sure we are going to see sports at all until 2021. Like there are people that they're not predicting it. They're just saying it is on the table. It is the worst case scenario, no question. But you see one of the worries in Italy is you're going to get it tamped down and everyone's going to come back outside.
Right.
And it's going to come back out. So I think that's a fear. And if that happens, listen, maybe it's mostly gone by August, but you want to risk it. And,
right.
So I think there's a fear of that. So there's an optimism in that the NFL is acting like everything is fine. And I know that optimism is based in the NFL's arrogance, but I kind of don't mind it because I kind of want a little like, hey, my team traded for DeAndre Hopkins. That is awesome.
Saw that. Yeah.
If that ever happens, if they ever actually plays with him, he's going to be great for Kyler Murray. I'm going to love having him on my team if that ever happens. But I do think it's weird and I do think it's bizarre. But I also don't mind because I could use that little stretch of normalcy. I mean, listen, it's not just sports, man. I write about movies and do movie podcasts all the time. There ain't no movies coming out. I mean, there's no. I mean, there are no movies. It's going to be I think arguably, there's a big argument because if you saw, but not just Frozen 2, but Universal is putting out most of its movies now, like The Invisible Man, which just came out 2 weeks ago, or The Hunt, which just came out now, which ended up being the last movie I saw in a theater. Those are now, you can rent them. You can rent them now at home.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that movie theaters have been very worried about happening for a very long time. And their acquiescence to this, there's people in the movie world that thinks this could be a turn forever. The idea
Sure.
of, like, get people out, which is kind of what my sports piece is about, right? Like when you change habits globally for an extended period of time, things might not go back to the way they were before. So I think that's something to keep in mind too. But yeah, it's weird and I don't think they should be doing it, but I'm also kind of glad they're doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and for all of you parents out there with young kids, I did see that Universal announcement, and Trolls World Tour is going to be out on Friday for $20 on iTunes and wherever you can stream.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that. And I think it's kind of what I've been talking about with my business. I'm a videographer, I'm a photographer, I'm in front and interacting with people a lot. So I know that it could impact what I do. And more so my wife, she's had to cancel all of her makeup consults. She's had all of her weddings canceled.
Yeah.
I think she was sitting on probably her biggest April ever before all this happened.
Alexa was going through the same. She's going through the same.
That's right. Yeah. With Alexa being an interior designer, she had a big corporate photo shoot with UGA. She was going to do all the makeup for the athletes that they were doing. But what I told her, I was like, look, it's times like these that it's really called upon freelancers or entrepreneurs or businessmen or even CEOs of captains of industry. You might have to pivot. And I think that that's what you were talking about in one of your articles about sports leagues. Who knows? Maybe this truncates a season after it does come back, where permanently maybe there's not 162 games in Major League Baseball. Maybe there's not 82 games in the NBA. Maybe other things are, but something will affect these sports leagues that we don't even foresee right now because of this. And it boils down to, like what you wrote in the New York Times, our viewing habits are going to change, and it's going to be even more permanent the longer this stretches out. And
I mean, again, I don't want to be alarmist about this, but this could be a really long time. It really could be. And this is what I mean about how this is the story of our lives. This is the thing right now. And I lived in New York, September 11th. and I would have thought that and Donald Trump's election and maybe Barack Obama's election would be the three biggest stories of my lifetime. This is going to be big. It's not already bigger. I suppose if tomorrow some magic comes from the sky, the part in the movie, in Signs, where they realize that the alien is allergic to water, that if that happens, maybe that won't be the biggest story of our lifetime, but I don't think it's going to. And I think this is the thing that I'm not trying to, and whatever this is, I don't even mean for this to be you jerks for not appreciating this earlier. This could be bigger than the Spanish flu. And the Spanish flu is like, I don't know anything else about that year other than the Spanish flu. Like, we all know the Spanish flu. We all they taught that. It's been more than 100 years. So this feels like something that that we're going to be talking about forever. And, one of the things I've written a lot about in my newsletter, and I'm sure you're going through too, is, trying to keep kids calm about this. I've struggled with it as well, because I'm worried, but also I want them to be kids still. And I've had to get after my youngest a little bit, just because he doesn't quite understand that, like, but I want this and I'm not getting this. Like, yeah, we're going to be locked in here together for a while now, man. So you best figure it out. But I also don't want them to feel like they can't be kids, So, he misses his friends already. He missed them over spring break, So it's going to be a thing that we're like, this is the biggest thing. So it's scary. But I'm worried that, my parents live in town. They're in Winterville, and they're healthy, but they're older. So, it's just scary. But fortunately, I have funny masks that I can put on to lighten the mood if I need to.
Yeah, well, you could just start a prank channel, just pranking your kids and your wife.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Hey, are you having enough trouble with your kid inside as is? How about we terrify them?
Right. You could be like that haunted house up in Tennessee that we all saw that documentary on. One last sports question before, and I do have some buy and sell.
Okay.
Trying to make it a little normalcy in this, but I did read this. I heard Jeff Passan on ESPN. I heard him talk about this. He said, not necessarily when MLB could return, but he said in paragraph 11, the uniform player contract, he said, in the event of a national emergency, the commissioner has the right to invalidate the contracts that have been signed. Is that going to be something that comes up to where you start hearing about baseball players freaking out over their contracts being canceled?
I think it's more about the arbitration that happened this year. I don't think you're going to see long-term secured contracts canceled. I think what you're really looking more at there is the arbitration cases that just happened. That if there's no season, or if it goes to where the season is shorter. There's also service time is a big issue in baseball. This is famously why Chris Bryant was left down in the minors, or Ronald Acuna was left down in the minors, was service time. They wanted to keep them in the minors a certain amount of time. How do you do service time if the season is 81 games, or if the season is lost entirely? That to me is that, I think that's really probably more what they're talking about with it. You're not going to see, Bryce Harper's contract in any trouble. It's really more, I think, about the arbitrations that just happened, as opposed that in the last couple of months, or maybe the extensions that just happened. I think you might see it with that, but I also feel that even with all this going on, baseball still has a collective bargaining agreement that's up in 2 years, and they still don't want to have that fight. That's a huge fight with the union that I don't think is a smart one to pick right now. And again, what's interesting about this is it's not smart at all for the union, for any sports league right now, to start getting into the details of what happens if we lose a season, what happens if these guys' contracts become this or that. They have to think about that stuff behind closed doors, but there's no reason in having a fight like that right now, because any sort of large proclamation from a sports league about this is what we're doing and this is blah, 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 who knows what this country is going to look like in 2 weeks.
Sure.
And until you know that, I don't think you want to be on any sort of limb like that.
Right. So since we are waiting since last Saturday, we haven't really talked about any UGA stuff. Interesting thing today, I ran into a friend of mine who's friends with Kirby. I'll just leave it at that. And I saw him in a parking lot. We were about 7 or 8 feet from each other. Good stuff. But it was weird because he's in the same, he's one of the coaches in the same little league that we're in. And it just felt good to see. I saw him a week ago, at the baseball fields, and life was so different. And he and I were just kind of lost for words a little bit. But I asked him, I was like, so how's Kirby taking the fact that spring practice has been called off? And he kind of shrugged it off and didn't give me much of an answer. And then I said, I guess he's fine as long as Alabama doesn't find a way to practice and he can't. And he kind of agreed. He's like, yeah, I'd say that's a fair statement. So what are your thoughts on all this?
I mean, not just practice, but recruiting. Man,
sure.
Like the idea that recruiting is no on-campus visits, no off-campus visits. That's got to be making him, touch his face. I think that's probably making him touch his face,
right.
because I think that is got to be frustrating, no question. But everyone's going through it. Everyone's going through it, even in Alabama. Everybody's going through it.
How does West Virginia not have a case? Or do they now?
They do. They just have bad testing. Yeah, I mean, like I don't know whether they officially do or not, but they obviously do.
Right.
And I think that it's, to me, that a lot of these numbers, I don't know what multiplication you want to do by for what the tests as opposed to any actual cases there are. But again, look at Donovan Mitchell, look at Idris Elba. They are showing zero symptoms and tested positive. But the only reason we know that is because they're Donovan Mitchell and they're Idris Elba and they can get tests. Have you had the opportunity to have a test? Have I had the opportunity to have a test? Of course not. We could both have it. Like, I doubt it. I think I've done the best I can. I think we've all done the best we can. But the idea that, the numbers aren't really that high. We have no idea how many people have it. So I think the best course of action for most people is to assume that you do. And I don't mean that to say be alarmist, like you should prepare to be sick. That's not what I mean. What I'm saying is pretend that you do, act as if you do, so you don't give it to anybody else. And I wish some of these students would have gotten that message before last weekend, but this necessarily isn't I wouldn't say this is necessarily the time to there will be time for recriminations later. But let's get through this.
Spoken like a true Gen Xer that you are, and then I am. So I've got some buy or sell questions for you. Let's start with this one, Will. Buy or sell? The University of Georgia basketball team was set to win the SEC tournament before it was called off.
Sell. They looked pretty good against Mississippi, but they looked they were going to run into Florida next, and I was at that last game where they played Florida, and even if everyone would have had a great game, Florida's size would have destroyed them in that game. So I'm glad they got a win. I think it's kind of funny that their final game, Anthony Edwards' final game, he was like 2 for 15. He had a cool dunk at the end, to end it, but no, they would have not won. I think they would have got wiped out the next day.
I think I heard Dave Johnston and Logan Booker mentioning this on the morning show on 960, but I can't remember what they said. But there's only been a couple, 2 or 3 times in history that the Georgia men's basketball team has ended the season with a victory.
Yeah. So, yeah, I get it. Hey, Georgia and Illinois both did. So, yeah, I like it. But, they were not winning. That was a fun game. I'm glad we got to see a lot of them off. Listen, I don't know if you're going to ask me about any questions about Illinois, but
maybe.
Woof. Go ahead.
So my next question, buy or sell, Will. Illinois basketball would have easily made the Sweet 16 had they been able to play in the NCAA tournament.
They wouldn't have easily made the Sweet 16, but I think that was a Sweet 16 quality team. I think there's no question.
What seed do you think they would have been?
Probably 6. I think they would have gotten a 6, maybe a 7, but I think they would have had a 6. So they were playing great at the end of the year, and they had a closer. They had Ayasumu, who that's what you need in college basketball. You need big dudes and a closer, and they had that. So yeah, it's frustrating. I know they did not actually break the streak of not making the tournament, but I know they would have made it. So I'm counting it.
All right. So buy or sell? College basketball players and other spring sports athletes should receive another year of eligibility.
I think they should. I'll sell it. I think they should, and I think they deserve it. Whew, that's a bag of worms, though. Like, it's a really hard thing to get together across the board. And I agree that this is I think this is the biggest thing we've all lived through. So it feels like if you ever make exceptions for anything, it's that. I just seem so hard to figure it all out. I mean, when you talk to people about that idea, people that are inside college athletics, they're all like, yeah, what a great idea. But there's no way we can do it. And I'm sad to say, because I would love to have Evan. I think they deserve it, and it breaks your heart for a lot of these guys, but I don't know how you make it happen.
Buy or sell, all or some sports seasons will be shortened in future seasons.
Buy. There's no question. You mean like after this year's over, whether the NBA will go to like 70 games or something?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, they were talking about that.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like there's going to be, when we're through this, there's going to be such a desperation to get back to normal that no one's going to want to make any changes that they don't have to. And so I'm going to bet when they get through, what people are going to want is to play. I mean, honestly, man, like, can you imagine how much do you want to watch a game right now?
Yeah.
Like anything. So yeah, I think that they're not going to cut anything down. People are going to be eager to play as much as they can after the season's over, with the possible exception, if this lasts more than a year, then that season's going to have to get shortened.
Yeah.
But I hopefully that won't happen.
Buy or sell, ESPN, MLB network, any sports network should show random baseball games from the previous few years that happened on a random Tuesday night between like the Rangers and Orioles that nobody remembers what happens, but happened to be an awesome game.
Yeah, I think there's great stuff with that. The idea of, I mean, I don't even have to be an awesome game. If I don't know who won, I'm in, man. Like, yeah. I was actually thinking of putting together like a YouTube playlist of old NCAA tournament games and then getting a bracket for my son. I know who won, but he doesn't know who won. He doesn't know who these players are anyway. So I thought the idea of like putting something together like that to be able to, because he just wanted the tournament so badly. Yeah, I think they should be. But, you know, I wrote my piece for the Washington Post is how ESPN's going to kind of like try to deal with all of this. And I do think a lot of it is at first, you can play old games, which is kind of what they're doing right now. Eventually, nostalgia is only going to get you so far. I think that ESPN's in good position because, by the way, I think ESPN did a terrific job of covering this. I think they did a better job, frankly, than any of the news networks have done covering their sort of thing. I think ESPN did a fantastic job with this. But I would say that, like the big thing is they're trying to get The Last Dance, the documentary about Michael Jordan. People are trying to get them to move that up. I know some of the editors that are working on that, and I'm sure they do not love being like, hurry for the world.
Right.
But because it's not done. Otherwise, I'm sure they would release it, but because people would watch that thing like insane right now. But anyway, I think that the playing old game thing is only going to work for so long. And then they're going to have to figure out something else. And whatever that thing is, I don't know. But I still believe, I don't know if anyone's seen the movie High Flying Bird, but there's a subplot in that movie about there's an NBA lockout and players start streaming their own games. Now that obviously did not a lot for a pandemic, but, you know, get people get everyone tested before a game that you and get 20 players to go play an all-star game that they all know are clear and clean in an empty place. I think they do it. They could. I don't think they can bring back the whole season, but there's going to be exhibition games to be watched in baseball and basketball, no question. Baseball's going to be harder because baseball is such kind of finicky sport. Baseball players have to get like full, like their arms have to get ready and they have to be all kind of revved up. You can't really like stop and start like that. That's why baseball's going to take the baseball forever to get back because they basically have to restart spring training again, which is going to be bad. So, but yeah, I think that'll work for a while, but eventually they're going to have to do more.
Okay, two more questions. One sports and one national question. We'll start with what do you want to do? Sports or important question?
Sports.
Okay. Buy or sell, Tom Brady eventually will be playing for the Patriots one more year after this free agency.
Buy. I cannot see him leaving the Patriots in the midst of this. And I know that it's a fun story for everyone to talk about, but Tom Brady coming back to the Patriots, listen, it will make Patriots fans happy, and man, it'd be nice to have something that everybody can agree upon to hate other than the coronavirus right now. So I think the Patriots would give people that opportunity. So I would say buy.
Yeah, that would be something I think a lot of people could just rally around.
Yeah.
All right, last question, a little bit on the more serious note. Buy or sell, the 2020 presidential election could be postponed or delayed or something due to the virus.
No, that's a tough question because I find one of the things that I think has been worrisome, while it's been understandable that a lot of people, I understand why Georgia pushed back its election and why Louisiana pushed back its election. I get it. it's who wants to go out and vote right now. I understand. On the other hand, boy, that's a scary precedent to push back, particularly when you have someone who has not shown necessarily a respect for the norms of usual politics, I would say, and has shown totalitarian bends, I would say. There is a school of thought right now that people need to start, that governments, like there needs to be some sort of the Board of Elections or something needs to start making every vote by mail more easily accessible in case it comes to do that. Because it's a big project and you kind of have to start it right now, because it's scary. I can see how that might happen. That's a scary concept. One way or the other. Like, listen, like whether you support Trump or whether you don't support Trump, the idea of yet another potentially considered illegitimate election is no good for anybody.
No.
And so I think what everyone was hoping out of this election before that was a clear outcome. And because I'm not sure we got that last time. I'm not sure we got it. I'm not sure there have been other years we haven't got it, but we really aren't sure we got it last time. And, it's funny when one way or the other, we need something definitive. And I think pushing it back is asking for trouble. And listen, if it's as bad in November as it is right now,
we got other problems.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The election. The election may not be the first thing on our mind.
Right. So I guess to end it, what do you got planned this week? You got any more articles coming out? What are you doing with the family?
Yeah, we are. We have the teacher. Their teachers at Barrow have sent over schedules for them. We have put together some schedules for them. But of course, my wife and I are both also, as you know, and you guys are as well, we're all home all day anyway.
Sure.
So I actually still, so is Alexa, like we are not, it's weird. Everyone's like, wow, what am I going to do with all this free time at home? I'm like, I got the same amount of free time at home as I had before, which is very little. So,
right.
and my wife is not exactly the same. She's a lot, some of her things are on hold. And listen, I'm still waiting we have not decided yet what we're doing at Major League Baseball. How much I'm going to write, how much, so then maybe more free time in that. But we're going to teach these kids. We start playing more basketball outside. I'd say I'm so glad I do not live in New York City right now.
Right.
Never minding the issues in the city, but like I've got a backyard where we can go play basketball, and and go play catch and goof around and have no worries until society collapses anyway of people coming into our yard. There's don't have to worry. And like, listen, I'm sure your family is doing this. We're social distancing, but not together. Like we're still together.
Oh, sure.
In our house, we're still together. And so that's something I think we're all going to need. It's been hard because this is the great joke of this. We started redoing our kitchen a month ago.
Oh. So
we demoed 2 weeks ago. So we don't have a kitchen right now. So which is not ideal. My dad is helping out with the project, and one of the contractor that Alexa works with all the time, he is here. We've taken real precautions for each of them coming in here, it's a lot of toaster meals and microwave meals right now.
It's got to get done though. It's got to get done.
They got to eat. Eat.
Yeah, we my two boys and I the other day we went up to an completely empty park, and I hit my son. He's playing shortstop, and I was like, "Look, let's just practice your fielding and your throws from shortstop, making it faster." And I even brought my daughter as the runner, and we put the helmet on her because maybe an errant throw would happen. But right. It's just a way to. It was great. We had a great time.
We're all, again, like it's weird because I already because again, Alexa and I have actually been quite busy up to this point already. It's a little disturbing that like this is just starting because we have a lot of time to all put together, but we'll get it figured out. We're all going to make it. And when we make it through all this, all the things that naturally as humans took for granted are just going to be awesome. Now it's probably just going to be like a month. We're still human beings. After like a month, like it'll be like, oh, this game is boring. Oh, I'm so but all of the things that we will that we desperately want right now, and we'll lust after when we get after a month. We'll get back to being antsy again, but that's okay. That's part of being human. But I think that I find myself as we kind of gird ourselves up for this, I find myself thinking about what that first month is going to be like when we're all back. Yeah, I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to affect the sports that I love or the movies that I love, but it is going to happen. And when it does, that's going to be a good month.
Yeah, I tweeted a couple days ago, how awesome would it be to sit through a downpour of Georgia versus Kentucky at Sanford Stadium? I mean, it's true. You kind of sit there and think like, wow, I probably wouldn't have missed that like I did, because I remember I famously did not go to the game because it was raining. But anyway, we're going to try to get some video content on our YouTube channel with some listeners. I've reached out to a few. They've sent their emails, and so I'm going to talk to them for about 5 to 10 minutes each and then compile it. So I'm a content creator, so I'm just trying to,
What's our podcast? Where can I find the podcast? Where can I find our YouTube channel?
Just search WSLS podcast on YouTube.
Well, I'm going to do that right now and check it out, man.
Yeah, you should subscribe
to that mofo.
There we go.
Look at that. You just got a little thing right there.
Oh, I got a notification.
Look at that. I did it.
It's that easy.
It is that easy. And look, there's you and there's you. Oh wow, Tony, you guys look good on here. I may have to get a better camera.
I can help you out with that. Okay. I know people myself. I'll drop it off via robot at your door or something.
We need to figure out our drone carriers.
That's right. That's right.
All right, man. Well, listen, I'm glad to be back talking to you. I'm glad to be talking back to the listeners. I missed doing the show already, and we still got a ways to go. So yeah, I'll chat with you. As I said, right now I'm busy, but check back with me in a couple of months.
That's right. All right, well, go Dogs, Will.
All right, well, until then, man, go Dogs.
And thanks so much for listening. You can find us online on social media, of course. Either the podcast at WSLS Podcast, really across the board, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even our websites, WSLSpodcast.com. Feel free to interact with us. We'd love to hear from you. And I've put a call out to a couple of listeners. I think we're going to try to do this video conferencing with y'all, and I'm going to put a mashup of different interviews, short interviews with some of y'all. So I'm looking forward to that. You can find me online at Jawavi Films. That's the same on Instagram, Twitter. I've been doing a lot of Twittering lately, so go ahead and follow me over there. That'd be great. Say hello. And then you can obviously follow Will, and I would definitely recommend that. He's got a lot of content coming out. William F. Leach on Twitter. That's where you should follow him. But we'll be back with another episode, hopefully pretty soon. But please, stay safe out there. Feel free to interact with us. We're home. Y'all are home. So let's just say our prayers and stay safe and, just be good to your fellow man. That's all I got to say about that. But what is it I say? Oh, yeah. We'll see you on campus, hopefully sometime very soon. And as always, go Dogs. That's it. Till next time.